Probably Daryl Dixon. And I tell you why. That I wasn't sure how I was going to play that. I was already a big fan of Frank Darabont and AMC. They had Breaking Bad and Mad Men. And I was super nervous going into that. And that cast had already been working together, doing press junkets, especially John Bernthal and Andrew Lincoln and Sarah. And I wasn't sure how I was going to play that. The first scene, they tell me my brother's chained to a roof. I was super nervous, and I'm facing this way, and I turn around and I just see all these actors, and they're all kind of judging me. And so I played it kind of coming out of the side of my face, like I didn't want to look at you, and you didn't like me, and I didn't like you either. That turned into the character. And as the seasons progressed, 15, 16 years now I've been doing that show, that character went from this to, as the seasons went on, he slowly squared up to you and looked you in the face. And that didn't happen maybe until like season 6, but it was written in a certain way where I was just going to be like my brother. I was going to be racist, thief. And I asked the writers, I knew Michael was leaving the show, and I asked if I could change it. And I wanted to change it in a way that I grew up with that. And I was ashamed of that. And I knew Michael was leaving the show. And what that did was it gave me an opportunity to come into my own and start off as a boy with a chip on his shoulder, angry at the world, and slowly realize these are my 2 feet on the ground. Who do I want to be? And it made me become a man on the show in real time. And writers started writing things where I became a hero. I stood up for people. I never lied. I meant what I said. That character was such a growing point in my career. It gave me a work ethic that I didn't have before, really. I really enjoyed being there. I put a lot of effort into that show. It caused me to develop a character in real time over the course of 15 years where people saw me age on TV. If you look at season 1 of that show and the last season and what we're doing in France, they're totally different characters. So I think that playing that character and learning those things and applying those things to my everyday job made it a more complicated character that allowed me to grow as I did it. And I think for that reason, maybe that's the hardest. Oh yeah. They offered Melissa and I that spin-off, and they said, hey, what about France? And we were like, wow, you're gonna take these 2 country folk and drop them in France? And it was so out there. I said yes right away. Melissa said yes right away. And then about 3 weeks later, they announced that the flagship show was ending. So, because we always thought we would go on a mission and we'd come back to the group. So we didn't know that was ending. So that put a little more pressure on us. But as far as the character development on that show, what I've been trying to do is apply what the character of Daryl has learned through all these people that have lived with him and have died around him and have taught him things, which is also part of his character development. If it got heated and I looked at you directly, we were gonna fight. Like I was gonna kill you or fight you or something. Or I'd just break down into a blubbering mess. What I'm trying to do now, when stuff happens to that character, I try to remember, like, what would Herschel have done? What would Rick have done? So I'm trying to learn from the people that eventually became my real family on that show. So I kind of got to the point where I took my biological family and just finally get those cobwebs away from me. Like, who are you gonna be in this situation? Like, what are you willing to fight for? What should you walk away from? Before I just fight everybody. Now I walk away sometimes, or I diffuse a situation. That's what Rick would have done. That's what Glenn would have done. It's what Herschel would have done. Pick your battle. Now I'm a more calculated, mature version of that maniac. You know, it's interesting with the Isabel character that Clemence played, because she sees something in me that she hopes she sees in me. She kind of rescues me, takes me to an abbey full of nuns, and there's a little boy there. And I see this little boy, and he's a little odd, and he's like sort of mimicking me, and so he's something on the back of my mind. She just wants me to get him to a certain spot, because the deal is, if the people of France can see who this kid is, they'll fight for themselves. They'll come out of the shadows. They'll stop being repressed. So there's a real Braveheart sort of, come on, fight, stand up, do it. So there's a bit of that in it. She knows that this boy's, they're not going to get this kid to the northern France. It's never going to happen. So she kind of projects on me that I'm able to do that. I don't want it. But then she says there's a boat. I'm like, fine, I'll do it. The people that I get in a fight with come back and they attack the place. They destroy the place. Now I have to do it. But she kind of has this relationship with me that she sort of wants me to be this way, but she realizes I'm not that way. But I'm trustworthy and I'll fight to the end to make it happen. And I think she might know that the boy might grow on me a little bit, which he does. And I know that this boy's not gonna make it out in the real world. And there's this fantasy of this stuff. And I'm like, let him just be a kid. He kind of grows with me. We start the mission. This little boy does these little things and I'm kind of like, well, he is special. I don't think he's like from God and he's got like magic powers, but he's special. There's not kids like that anymore. He's sophisticated. He believes in art and all these things that Daryl doesn't know about. So I'm learning from him as much as he's learning from me. You know, I'm a producer on the show, so I do readings with actors and we pick an actor and blah, blah, blah. They're like actors. He's what I think that character would be like anyway, automatically. His dad goes, you screw it up. I'm sure he ruined it. I'm sure he screwed it up. And I'm like, no, he did really well. And he's like, nah, I'm sure he messed it up. So immediately I'm like, I want to protect this kid. Daryl wants to protect that kid. I'm like, he is our guy. He started to mimic me. Like we're doing a scene and there's a bird and I'm like looking at the bird. He'll look at the bird. Like everything I do, he's doing. There's a scene where I'm yelling at him and he starts crying. If you want me to torture him now, like, we need him for the rest of the season. Like, I can't torture him anymore. We gotta stop. And it wasn't like trying to torture him, but he befriended me so much that it meant something other than we're on a television show that I was screaming at him. So there's ways that he sort of influences me, I influence him. Clemence has a real calmness to her. She was interesting to work with. So I'm kind of learning from them and they're learning from me, which is what you want when you're shooting a show of an American dropped in France and he doesn't speak French. The fact that I can't read the signs, I don't know where I'm at, I don't know what people are talking about. Is this gonna be a fight? Are we gonna get along? It's rare when it mimics real life and you have to have your eyes open to be able to walk through that door and let that happen. You can get so wrapped up in you. I mean, to be honest, I didn't even want to call the show Daryl Dixon. I was like, it's too much. I would love to shoot here, but you would hate it. You would hate it. Everywhere we go, we destroy. Yeah, you know, you guys are so clean here. True, but you know, like we went to Paris and it's beautiful in Paris. We go to some neighborhood, it's just stunning. And within like 3 days, we destroy the whole thing. We break all the windows, we catch things on fire. And the people, like the old people coming out of their houses were like, oh, you know, I thought we were gonna get kicked out of there. We broke the Eiffel Tower in half, you know. Not really.